Hello there, Robins fans and Speedway fans. You're joining me for this video, and I'm joined by two people that were pivotal in that 2012 season and the 2012 victory at Poole. Simon Stead and Alun Rossiter. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Simon, you good?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. Under the circumstances. Thank you.
Yeah. And Roscoe, keeping well?
Yeah, I'm very well. That gravel's looking even more dapper every day, isn't he?
We look older, he looks younger. How's that work?
He does, doesn't he? Where's the old
Corona tan?
So what we thought we'd do for the fans, everyone that's tuned into this, is just recall that meeting. Just go back to those two meetings, go back to that season, have a chat about them, and recall some amazing memories for the club. And I think Al, we'll start with you, Al. That season we finished second in the league, so we finished just behind Poole. But really, us and Poole were head and shoulders above everybody else that season, weren't we?
Yeah, I think you're right there, Lee. It was very much so. We at the end, I think, it was. you kind of sound like a bit of a hypocrite, but because they'll say, "Well, why do you have the playoffs?" But that season, I think Poole and Swindon were the top two best teams, and rightly so in the final. But we all know the rules and how it is, and we have to live with it because it's worked for me and it's worked against me in the past. Yeah.
And Steady, you must look back at that season and it finished the highest of highs.
Well, it's a real strange one for me because the season obviously hadn't gone to plan at all for me personally. I felt at times I was letting the team down, I was letting the fans down. Number of reasons. Obviously, I got a full-time job, wasn't racing often enough. Average was too high in the elite league to be able to double up and do both. So I was riding perhaps in a month what some guys were riding in a full season.
Yeah.
In a week. So I was riding against guys that were riding a lot more than I was, and I just couldn't get myself going. I was obviously having to work to subsidise the Speedway because I wasn't riding enough to make any money from it. So it was a vicious circle, really, and I know it was hugely frustrating, but we changed a lot of things before the playoffs, really.
Because Ash Holloway come in, didn't he?
Yeah, got Ash back involved, and this is really from a deep conversation with Roscoe about.
I remember it well.
Yeah, but sometimes you needed that chat just to either we were going to be in it and give it our best shot and try and finish on a high and do whatever it was that we needed to do to enable us to do that, or make way for somebody else. And that was Roscoe's decision, really. I'm not. But he did that having talked to me, and that was a big turning point in the season for me.
I was on holiday in Poole, camping.
Yeah.
And there was the service was pretty poor, and we were to-ing and fro-ing and discussing things. And probably now, I think if you look back on the situation, I know at the time, honestly, you were a little bit upset with me, weren't you? I think now you as a manager, now you can probably see my ways of the reasoning, but I kind of looked through it, and the good thing about it is we came out the other side and you became the hero, really.
Well, but it was one of those situations that you never think you're going to find yourself in. Probably, certainly as a rider, I just couldn't. From being inside it, I couldn't feel like I could make the necessary changes because I was just in, like I said, in that vicious circle. I needed somebody from the outside come in and say, "Steady, look, mate, we need to stop this, restart. Who do you need with you? What do you need to do in terms of machinery?" We got Ash back involved, who I've always loved having as an engine tuner, as a friend, as somebody in the pits. Cost myself a fortune, but it was worth it. We flew him into all the playoff matches. Bearing in mind it was rained off however many times, so I was flying in and out of Poland every time. But it was worth it, and yeah, we got there in the end. But going back to the original question, Kil, the season for me didn't hold fond memories because I was struggling, but it just made the playoffs seem even better.
Yeah, because it was your testimonial year as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a testimonial year, and I think from the testimonial, once I got that out of the way, I could sort of start to see a bit of daylight, and things started to improve after that.
Yeah.
But that was just after the testimonial was when I had the big chat with Alun, and started getting sorted, and that was a big turning point, and I started to make some changes. I had a brief spell at reserve, which I think helped build a bit of confidence. I got some more riding done. I was doing some training sessions with Ash away from Swindon. We went to Scunthorpe and different tracks to try and get some track time. And things started, and the momentum was building for me, and I was feeling better and better all the time. And it got to the playoff final. I remember Simon Malenko coming to me and said, "Steady, what's going on? What are you going to do?" And I just said, "Don't worry about me, Sam. I'm going to be fine."
Yeah.
Away we went.
And you know what? It's interesting because obviously back then I wasn't involved in the club in an official capacity, so I was a supporter, and that was your 4th year at Swindon. And you'd had 3 good years before that year. And I remember the news breaking that there's potential that you might lose your place. And from a fan's point of view, it would have been it would have been heartbreak. And you know what? To this day, if you hadn't have ridden in that final, we might not have won it, but it would have tainted it somewhat for the majority of fans. So thankfully, everything happened that happened, and you moved on from it, both of you, and we got to a conclusion where you were in that final.
Yeah, and how good was it?
Oh, I mean, if you
just reliving it again, it was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you start on that first leg out, I mean, we finished second in the table to Paul. They just pipped us. We got past Birmingham in the playoffs quite comfortably, and Paul had got past Lakeside in the playoffs very comfortably. So it was all set for 2 massive meetings. Was losing Doyley a big thing? Because obviously we lost him the night before, didn't we? The first leg.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Doyley was sort of just starting to bang in the points, and then to lose him the night before was a massive blow for us. And it was like anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, but before a playoff final.
Yeah. And Seb came in. Was Seb on speed dial? Because to bring him in, I know he had Aspergen's leathers on, but his Kevlar's on. But was he in your mind anyway? As always a possible replacement?
It's one of them things that after going away from Swindon in 2009, having to up my game after winning it with Coventry in 2010. You start once you won it once, you start thinking forward and advance thinking. Same pretty much now to nowadays. If something goes wrong, have you got a plan B?
Yeah.
Got to have a plan B at whatever time you did. And going back to a conversation about Simon, it wasn't personal or nothing like that, but it was just trying to. We had been that close. We hadn't won the title for 45 years, and it was a conversation that had to be had. There was things that you spoke about, and it was tough, especially when you're friends, and you could think, it can, your friendship, you're talking online because, like I said, Simon understandably was upset, but at the end of the day, he was still very professional about it, and obviously being a friend of the family as well, which was very hard for me. And sometimes now, like Simon's probably on this side of the boat with us now, that will probably understand how difficult it is when you're friends with somebody, but then you're trying to do business.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to do the best for the club. Not, yes, it would have been heartbreaking not to have him, but I always like to say we're pretty loyal. I've been always pretty loyal with my riders reasonably. And, and I think, that after the long conversations, of course, going into late at night, 11, 12 o'clock some nights. And it was a decision which I'm glad we stuck with. And in fairness to Simon, there was a couple of things that I wasn't comfortable with and said to him that he needed to start change and do different. And he took it on board. And I think the one thing that Simon would probably agree with me, is like he never did his own bikes. He was just turning up from Sheffield, which I rode all my career, and I still had a full-time job. So I understand how hard and how difficult it is. But I just said to him, when you had a bad night at Swindon, when you go home, when you want to go and sit in a workshop and just do your own clutch, sand it down, put it all back together, new springs and things like grease the cable, sit on the bike, drop the clutch like that, bang, bang, when the back wheel drops. Simon will understand, he'll explain to you as well. But things like that, going, yeah, I feel good now. I didn't feel like, I never felt like that before. But yeah, I'm on it, and you're in the workshop, and you're doing starts, you're doing things like that. You're sitting on your bike, and I don't like that, I want to change that. And you're doing it yourself. I think that was one of the big questions and the big changing point for me, which Simon did, in my opinion. What do you think, Si?
I think you bang on, mate. And after that conversation, it was literally the next day. We'd made that decision, go and pick the bikes up, start doing them myself. Bit of a change around in people in the pits with me, and
good old Ruby.
I'm glad it was you.
I want to go away, Ruby, please. I'll be back in a minute, darling. Go sit there.
And
Simon,
we just started it. We'd made the decision, so that's what we were going to do, make it happen. And like I said, being in that vicious circle, it was too hard to get out. I needed somebody else to tell me, this is what you need to do.
When was the conversation? When did that conversation happen? Was it before the playoffs, after the before the playoff semi-final, or do you remember?
It wasn't just one single conversation, because we had lots of things that we needed to work through and get on top of. But really, it probably started, I would say, after my testimonial, didn't it? You're like, yeah, right, you've got that out of the way. Look, we need to start changing some things. And really just it sort of snowballed from there. And really that gave us a number of weeks and what have you before it really got to crunch time. Yeah. So it was never going to be an overnight turnaround, but it gave us a platform to be able to make the necessary changes and be in a good place when the business end really started.
Yeah, which obviously it did. And because that was your 4th year with us. So in terms of the team, Hans, Troy, Nick, it's a strong, Peter Kilderman, it's a strong team. Was that the best team that you rode in at Swindon?
Oh, man, it's
I know it's tricky. Because you had Lee Adams in the team, yeah.
You're going to say, like, two of those years, I was riding with Lee Adams.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And we went close, didn't we?
2009, yeah.
Wolverhampton. So, yeah. You know, a bit more firepower. We would have probably won it that year as well. But it was a great team, and I just remember Hans, firstly, fabulous captain.
Yeah.
Great number one, and just the atmosphere around the place the whole time was just great. It really was, and I always say to the guys who are riding for me now that atmosphere in the pits is crucial.
Yeah, it's massive.
You're all in it together, and really we had that year, more so than really any other year I can remember.
Yeah, spot on. And again, it goes back because you were part of the team that lost in 2009. So there's a little bit of added incentive once you get back into that final to get it over the line. I mean, talking about that first leg, Seb came in for Doyley. Which we perceived to be a bit of a blow from a fan's perspective at the time, because you know Doyley was really starting to go well. But Seb had he'd guested for us once at Birmingham and scored 10+1, hadn't he, Al? So he'd ridden away at Birmingham for us and done exceptionally well. So he was a decent replacement. You had confidence to bring him in on that meeting, on that first leg.
Yeah, no, obviously as a rider, you know, when he rode for us, he's a rider that sadly just sort of disappeared now, really, which I think he had so much potential, but I just didn't think I think at the final stride, I just didn't think he had enough belief in himself. But I certainly had the belief in him that he could do it. And I think knowing that you got the chance of making a final, I think you know that you're going to get a little bit more out of these people as well.
Yeah. Obviously, everybody ups their game a little bit. And when we watch the videos back, as hopefully everybody that's watching this has done, you see the interviews, and it's interesting. I found it interesting that Midlow and Darcy, before the first leg, both said we were the better team collectively. So, and again, from a manager's perspective, you wouldn't be telling your team that the other team are better. Surely you'd be saying to yourself, I mean, Simon, for you, were you saying we're better than them? We're going to win this, or?
That's it. Maybe Midlow hadn't mentioned anything at all to Darcy. Maybe he was just letting the guys do their own thing. I think, you know, in reality, there was nothing between us, and that's why that final was so good.
Yeah,
because there really wasn't anything to pick between either two teams. It could have gone either way. And
I think over the 4 Elite League meetings, there was, I think, 1 or 2 points between the 4 meetings. That was it.
Unbelievable.
Nothing. Yeah,
I can't believe that.
Yeah,
I've learned something today.
Yeah, there you go. It just shows. I think it was 182 to 181 to us.
Wow.
I think it was nothing.
Best
nothing
team won.
at all. Nothing in it at all. And so we went into that first meeting, and big crowd. We had a big crowd at Swindon that night. I was there that night, and the atmosphere was brilliant. Big heat one. Darcy locked up on the first turn. Did that set the tone for them, Al? Where he locked up and 360?
Yeah, I think that it always does. It's the first race, and it's a bit like having Jason as your number one now. If you go out, your number one hits the ground running, then you know it just sets the pace. But in saying that, Jason at Ipswich this year clipped the curb twice and fell off. So you know, what am I talking about? I'm talking rubbish now. But generally, heat one, your number one and your number two, if you can get a 4-2 out of it or a 5-1, it certainly sets. It boosts the camp in the morale in the pits for sure.
Yeah, and I think I'm as guilty as everybody with this. When we'll talk about the second leg in a while, but we always go on about Simon's second turn at Poole in that second leg. But when you watch that meeting back, Simon, that heat 3, where you made the start, excellent first turn, got ahead of Chris Holder, who had just been crowned world champion. That heat's as big as that away one, really.
Yeah.
Huge.
And like you said, people talk about the heat one at Poole, but really the start of the meeting at home, we were, not just me, but we were all on it.
Yeah.
And considering the track was probably a little bit different than we'd normally had it was probably a little bit slicker than normal due to the conditions, the weather. But really, we were all flying. And I remember I'd got a good draw with the gates. I was off 1, Chris was off 2. But you know, he was just crowned world champion. But that was an added incentive for me. You know, to be the first person to beat the world champ. That was just added incentive. I got on great with Chris. And I knew if I could get out of the start, my engines were sorted. Ash had done a great job on that. He brought that over for that meeting. So I knew if I could get in front, I'd be all right.
Yeah. As it proved.
So it was, yeah. But it was, it was just a great team performance, that. And I mean, if they weren't able to do the 2 tactical substitutes.
Yeah, 2. They had to use 2
tactical rides. You know, that we would have taken a bigger lead into the Poole fixture. But look, it all made for the excitement, didn't it? And just 2 fabulous meetings.
So how did you feel, Al? Because we clocked up a huge lead at one point. We were so far ahead. We were going, this is unbelievable.
I must admit, privately, I was kind of absolutely devastated at the time when they pulled back the 2-7-1s against us.
Yeah.
And I was trying to motivate the boys, but inside I was not hurt. Well, hurting's probably the wrong word, but really absolutely gutted, I think, deep down, thinking we've just been demoralising them. They've just pulled back with 2 class riders in Darcy and Chris. And, you know, all this hard work we've done, You know, is it going to be another 2009? The demons were coming back in my mind at the time.
I can imagine.
Playing with it, you know, and this 45-year wait, and this 45 years, is it going to carry on? Like, you know, my goodness, like, I think it was 7 or 8 points, 7 points, I think, in the end.
Yeah, it was
because it was weird, because it was an odd point loss somewhere, wasn't there?
Yes, because in my last heat there was only 2 riders finished.
That's it. Yeah, it was a 3-2. Yeah, it was a 3-2.
Yeah. So no, the old demons were coming back, and I was like privately absolutely mortified to see how far we were in front, and them just to be just behind us at the time. Because
it was an 18-point lead, and it shrunk down to 7. So what? I mean, it's nuts. 18 points. So what did you say to the boys at the end to get them ready for leg 2? I mean, that's a tough team talk, because you've gone from having an amazing team talk. Hold on, we're 18 points up here, to 7, and 7 going to Paul in them days was nothing really.
Not really. I don't think. I say 7 points to get, you know, for Paul, it was doable for him. Yeah. But I think probably what probably helped us is the fact is that we were so dominant, and I don't believe that they could just rely on Chris and Darcy all the time.
No,
you know, they could ride every race, and the fact that we, you know, they did it in our races where they could proceed to get the points and that. But you know, it was just a conversation with the boys, that, you know, and I think obviously the wet conditions of the second leg as well. It always plays. It seems for some reason. Don't ask me why. Whenever you go to your home track and it's a bit wet and a bit different than normal, it seems to play in the away team's hands. I don't know why, because it's the same for both teams. You know, when people say, well, you were lucky, a bit like when we went to Wolves when it rained. We were lucky to beat them because of the weather conditions and that. But it's the same for both 14 riders, really, isn't it?
Exactly. I tell you what we'll do. That's an awesome catch up. What we'll do is we'll pause it there, because what we'll do, guys, is we'll play this on Saturday. We've covered the lead up. We've covered leg 1. We'll pause it here, and then we'll reconvene in a minute, and we'll have a second leg. We'll have a second leg of our meeting after the second leg of the meeting tomorrow night on Sunday. So thanks for that, chaps. We'll catch up in a little while.
Cheers.
Talk to you in a bit.